bit of idea as to what are the few key challenges we're facing today. Too much of accountability. Absolutely, every employee is being supervised, looked after from the top, from the side, from the behind. There are vigilance, there is CBIs, and anything is done today or in the past is looked from a lens of were there any losses? And if there are losses, was there any fraud? If there is a fraud, was this man involved in the fraud? Now, this type of accountability on one hand makes you stifle into the job. On the other hand, there is another type of no accountability. There are staff who don't take decisions and they are not accountable for anything. And these are the guys who get promoted. This is a very unfortunate story. It's like selection of an army general. One of the conditions of a selection of an army general was that he should have not got injured in a battle. He should be having a strategy from his armchair in the headquarters. Can you select generals like that? And this is what we are doing. We are selecting generals who have not even actually got into the depth of an organization operations and who have never taken decisions in their life. Any decisions taken doesn't guarantee you that the decision would be right. I have taken so many decisions in my life, and I can tell you almost 70% of my decisions have been wrong. But that doesn't mean I will stop taking decisions. Or that doesn't mean the organization will look at me from suspicion as to why am I taking decision like this. But that 30% decision I take takes the bank or takes the corporates to a different level. That's more important for any organization rather than not taking decision. So this is where the challenge lies of accountability. And I think this is where there is something that needs to be done very urgently, because we have come to a stage where decisions are not being taken. Everybody is paranoid today. Everybody is trying risk averse. I don't want to take decision. I've seen files actually moving up and down for 6 to 9 months for a single decision whether we should take a call on a client having a BB credit. My goodness. It's a commercial organizations. Commercial organization cannot be governed with an administrative outlook. That needs to be changed dramatically if the public sector banks need to be competing at the commercial space. The other thing is lack of holistic strategies with clear-cut priorities. When I joined the bank and I spoke to my colleagues across and said, क्या हो रहा है आप लोग के बैंक में? क्या कर रहे हैं? What are your big 3 or 4 strategies? साहब, ये तो ad hoc है. Anything that comes, we have to do it. Be it Jandhan, be it opening of accounts, be it Mudra Bank. Strategy कहाँ बनाते हैं हम लोग? But तो करते क्या हो? We just make targets. There's a difference between targets and difference between strategies. And who sets the targets? The targets are set from the top. But who sets the target from the top? Well, the MDs and the EDs sets the target from the tops. I said, who's supposed to set the targets? Who's supposed to present the business plan? Do you know the poor branch manager today is responsible for not less than 15 business units? Can you imagine a branch manager can justify achieving targets of 15 business units in a bank? Impossible. Impossible. The guy is surviving. I go and clap, pat him all the time. आप बहुत ही मेहनत करते हो, बहुत ही survive करते हो. मुझे बहुत खुशी है, पर ये job आपका नहीं है. This is not your job. Where are the business units? Where are the business unit heads who prepare plans? Where do they give their plans for targets? Where is the strategy of the bank saying that in the next 2 or 3 years, this is how we are going to work? Absolutely no thinking around their positions. And let's go ahead, achieve our quarter targets, achieve our annual targets, do whatever comes from externally and move ahead. Inadequate branch strength. For last almost a decade now, banks are prohibited from hiring from campus. When you don't hire from campus, you don't become competitive with the other commercial banks. You do not have staff or capable people that can take higher positions. Now what is happening is, as we going ahead now, we are seeing the crop that is coming up is not fit to be even a GM. Forget about being in a leadership role of executive directors or MDs, it's just not fit to be a GM. That is the biggest challenge our public sector banks are facing. And it's going to be more problematic as we move forward. There are certain banks which are trying to resolve this issue in a different way. We'll come to that. Employees, absolutely no incentives to perform better. When I was looking at the PMS, I said, what type of PMS we need to have? And how do we use PMS to drive performance? Then I said, what type of weightages do you give to your performances? And everybody said, sub 50 to 60 is qualitative and 40 to 50 is objective. वो बोला ऐसे क्यों? सब देखो, unless a guy gets 80 to 90%, then he is not considered for promotion. And if you do not have 50 to 60 qualitative, he will never get 80 to 90%. I said, ridiculous. At least 70 to 80% of the objectives, your key parameters, have to be objectively measurable things. I don't care whether he gets 80 or 90, he should be given what he deserves. And the promotions have not to be based on weightages or on the 80 or 90, but on relative scorings. That's the way the organization will move forward. And if you start doing it on the basis of 80 or 90%, the entire concept of PMS will fall flat. In the public sector banks, there are only two banks. One is State Bank of India, another is Bank of Baroda, who have some type of a robust PMS system. All other public sector banks do not have a PMS system. And when you do not have a PMS system, you have a problem of bench strength, you have a problem of succession, you have a problem of attracting talents, you have a problem of retaining talents, you have a problem of development of talents. And that is another challenge that we are facing it. Risk management needs higher attention. We have seen the risk of the banks are very high. It's loan risk, EC list, guarantee risk, treasury risk, you name it. Given the portfolio of the bank and the quantum of the portfolio of the bank, the risk management now plays a very important function. The question is, do we have capable expertise within the bank to manage this risk? Now, there are key levers to transform PSPs. I'm looking at internal restructuring. I'm a strong believer that depend less on external sources. Do what you can do internally. Make yourself stronger internally. When I was on the IIM Ahmedabad board, we kept on dialoguing with the government and said, please give us the governance of the board we want. Give us the composition of the board we want. Let us elect our own MDs or the directors. Give us an opportunity to manage our own affairs. We fought and fought and fought, and finally we became independent. I am Ahmedabad, I am Bangalore, actually went that route. So I'm saying, you first do something internally to be strong enough, and then put your case to the government to get yourself free from the external controls. That's the best way to manage the entire affairs. So look at the governance. Whom does the MDs and executive directors report in public sector bank? I don't have an answer till yet. If you don't have an accountability to the board, how can board expect performance from you? It's a simple question I pose. Absolutely nobody knows to whom they are accountable. Yes, I know that's an accountability there. How that accountability is related to the operations of the public sectors, which is internal. So this needs to be really adjusted and changed. The composition of the board, less said the better. Is the board has an leverage to build the expertise around the board based on people that are good enough to run public sector banks, is a big question mark. And therefore, many times it's quite a frustration when you see how the board functions. The composition of board is very, very critical for effective function of any organization. HR, I've already spoken to you on performance management, but the entire function of HR, being a catalyst, looking at capability, looking at competency building, is reduced to only looking at resource planning for future. कितने आदमी कितने बैंक को चाहिए, ब्रांच में चाहिए, कितने आदमी कितने मैनेजमेंट के हेड ऑफिस के लिए चाहिए. All that they do is that number crunching, and the bigger role of HR is absolutely lost, and that needs to really look into it. You know, they said there was a mismatch between the liabilities and assets, which resulted in a whole lot of problems we have seen in ILFS. Probably we were lucky, I would say, public sector banks. We are very lucky. Kanan is nodding, but I'm saying we are very lucky. Because the public trusted us. And in spite of a huge mismatch, we were lucky. We take deposits, they call it the consumer deposits, which are not more than 2 years. Any deposits which the bank takes from where then they will invest is not more than 2 years. And it gives loans which are about 7 years, 8 years. There's a total mismatch. The fortunate part is the de facto deposit lasts for more than 10 years. That's the trust of the public on public sector's bank. The most positive thing that we have is the people trust public sector banks. And if anytime there was a crisis, which we saw in ILFS, and if people start panicking, which we saw when somebody said that only 10 lakhs of your rupees is covered in a bank, people would have jumped into the bank to get the money, and then you would have seen all the public sector bank crashed. Because you didn't have enough money to do it. There's change required. There was the issue of the bonds, which public sector banks can do only for their capitalization. But why not issue of bonds for long-term lending? This is the biggest mismatch. You cannot lend long-term with short-term deposits. The moment you look at this, you say at some point of the other time, there will be a crisis, there will be a run on the cash, and public sector banks will collapse. Therefore, we need to correct the situation immediately. These are some of the action plans. Some of them I've already done. The NRC, the nomination committee, is one of the biggest committee today, which drives the key performances, manages the talent at the top level in any corporates. The nomination committee in public sector bank is just for the namesake. This nomination committee needs to be empowered for composition of board, for evaluation of performances of top leadership, and then you will see how the change that happens as we move forward. Empower the board for campus recruitment. Empower the board, as like Bank of Baroda has done, to set up various platforms or SVPs where you build the competency from outside laterally. So they are able to do better because they have experts in their different, for example, in IT, they have a complete platform where there are outsiders managing their entire IT. On HR, they have another platform they're completely managed, and they are not employees of the government. They're outside lateral employees. Unfortunately, this thought process has been now really been said that no, you can't do that. That needs to change. If Bank of Baroda has been successful, why not try that model with other banks, and other banks give enough freedom to do it? Or free all the bank public sector employees from the government control. That is external changes, structuring, if you want to be competitive enough. Performance management is discussed. The other thing is, we have by design or by default, I would say, we have a structure which goes from top to GM, MD, ED, GM, FGM, regional manager, AGMs, and branch. And everything flows in that structure. Retail loan, housing loan, MSME, Jandan, Mudra, everything flows in that. This is an outdated structure. It cannot survive in today's competitive environment. If you want to be competitive enough, you need to have centralization and verticalization of businesses. The branch manager should be only responsible for banking operations. All other business heads responsible for their businesses, which goes right down up to the grassroots level. How many banks have that gutsome to do it? I know one bank is now experimenting in certain towns to go that level. We are experimenting to do this we have already done centralization of a lot of things, to do a verticalization in few segments. But if you do across all segments, believe me, a public sector bank can be as good as a fintech in agility. I ask this question everybody in the bank. Why can't you be a fintech in Union Bank? Fintech borrows from you and make money. Am I right? They borrow from you and make money. Why can't you make money on your money? Where are we failing? We're failing in agility. We're failing in competitiveness. We're failing in having a right structure to do it. The moment you change this thought process, you will see all the banks are like fintechs. And the fintechs now, which are nibbling the public sectors and taking all the bread and butter now, will be actually running for that. Because the banks will be agile, will be more competitive in running the businesses. You need to create a very innovative organization structure. Automation is a big thing. Analytics, very rarely banks use. So much of data, nobody knows how to use the data. So much of data, we are paranoid collecting data. अरे पर data का करते क्या हो? क्या analyze कर रहे हो? क्या interrupt कर रहे हो? What is the decision making you are doing out of that? We need to do analytics on whole lot of data. Data warehousing is now something that we are looking at. And saying, how do I, so many applications all over, how do I bring all that information in one place and then start doing analysis for decision making process? Now this is a big challenge. Blockchain. How many of the public sector banks have actually taken an initiative on blockchain? Except for ICCI and other, which are private banks have taken. None of them even have participated in the process of blockchains. Why are we not doing it with so much of risk of advances, risk of cyber challenges? Why are we not in the blockchains area? Artificial intelligence. Are we not looking at artificial AI in a different way? Now, these are three big areas where public sector banks need to focus. There are a whole lot of stuff we can do. There are a whole lot of stuff which the government can do. But I strongly believe what we can do, we should do it. And when we do it and we stand on our feet, when we have right to ask to government, please do not do what you are doing. Thank you very much.